Early in the morning, the sky turns dark for just 1 minute as the sun goes through a strange phenomenon. In New Zealand, Zack wakes up covered in sweat in a motel. He looks out the window and notices that the sun looks weird. Then he goes to the kitchen to drink some water and turns on the radio, but there's only static. When he returns to the bed, he notices that the clock is stuck, so he pokes it until the numbers move. He also tries calling the reception, but nobody answers. Afterward, Zack leaves in his car. He stops at the gas station to fill his tank, but when he tries to pay he can't find anybody. He goes inside the building through a back door and finds a coffee maker on the verge of burning, so he unplugs it. Next he checks the bathroom, which is locked from the inside but there's nobody in it. Zack decides to leave and finds lots of abandoned vehicles on the road. Eventually he sees a house, so he stops to knock on the door, but nobody answers here either. He then breaks the glass on a door to reach inside and unlock it so he can go in. In the kitchen he finds a broken boiler spreading water all over the place, so he shuts it down. Every room is searched yet there's nobody around, even though there's an abandoned breakfast in bed. Back on the road, Zack sees various crashed vehicles, but not the owners or the authorities. This distraction causes him to almost crash into a badly parked fuel truck, but he manages to dodge it just in time. Zack then looks inside the truck and finds the seats empty, so he tries to use the radio. Unfortunately it doesn't work either. When Zack finally makes it to the city, he also finds it empty and with vehicles randomly abandoned on the streets. He keeps looking around the area and notices some dark smoke nearby. It turns out a plane has crashed and destroyed a house. Zack looks everywhere yet he can't find a single body. Moments later he arrives at the satellite research station where he works. This place is also empty, but that doesn't stop him from sitting at a computer and trying to contact other stations around the world, to no avail. He also tries using a landline phone but it doesn't work either. The only message he finds is a fax saying they're proceeding with Project Flashlight as scheduled. It appears some words are missing. Zack takes the elevator to the basement lab and looks at another computer, which says that Project Flashlight has been completed. Then he enters the control room and finally finds a person. However, when he turns the chair around he discovers that his coworker is dead. His hand is burned, his eyes are bulging, and there are weird lumps on his face. When the body collapses on the controls, an alarm is triggered and the computer voice announces that there's radiation danger, so the lab will be sealed. Zack immediately runs to the elevator, but it's already closed. A desperate Zack then tries to shut down the emergency system, but the screen only tells him to talk to administration, which is obviously empty. He goes back to look at the body and tells him that his experiment has caused humanity to disappear. The computer voice interrupts him to announce rising ultraviolet levels, so protective clothing is necessary. Zack gets an idea and runs to find a burner and some gas tanks. He turns the burner on and opens the gas, then he leaves them together in the bathroom before running to hide in an office. There he finds a recorder, so he listens to the latest message. His co-worker's voice explains that they've been using incomplete programs in their computers and that headquarters have been withholding information, so he refuses to work blindly. Zack decides to add his own message to the tape. He mentions that Project Flashlight has malfunctioned and that he's the only person left on Earth. At that moment the gas tanks explode, creating a hole in the ceiling that allows Zack to leave the basement. In just a few minutes, he's out of the building. Afterward, Zack goes to the radio station and broadcasts his name, address, and phone number in case anyone is listening, asking them to contact him. He also paints this message on street signs with huge arrows pointing at it. Then Zack returns to the motel and waits for a while, but nobody comes or calls. Sometime later, Zack steals a police car and drives around town while using the loudspeaker, asking any survivors to please come forward. Unfortunately, nobody comes out. In the evening, he plays a saxophone in the rain. At the motel, Zack is tired of hearing his own voice on the radio and gets so drunk that he starts breaking objects. Since things are obviously not getting better soon, he decides he needs an update. 5 days later, Zack is living in a mansion decorated with art he took from museums and starts his mornings drinking champagne with an egg. Suddenly there's a strange flash of light, so Zack goes to the balcony to investigate, but he finds nothing. Later in the mall, Zack gets a bunch of supplies in the back of a car. He also uses a drill to break into any locked stores. He tastes various foods from the bakery, gets some nice clothes, and plays with a set of trains. This inspires him to find a real train and ride it for hours. At the mansion, Zack plays pool against himself while pretending to be different people. Then he finds some women's clothing in the closet and notices how nice the fabrics are, so he decides to try them on. When he looks at himself in the mirror, he gets rather emotional. Next, Zack grabs a gun and watches a video about the country's duty to pursue research and maintain the world's balance of power. An irritated Zack decides to shoot the TV, but the impact causes him to fall back with his chair and he accidentally shoots again at the ceiling, making the chandelier fall. It seems paranoia has taken over his brain. He accuses the man on the tape of wanting to destroy everything, so it's Zack's job to take over. After making a hole in the wall, Zack installs some music players in his room, which he connects to speakers outside. He also puts up a bunch of figures of world leaders on the lawn. As music blasts on the speakers, Zack appears on the balcony to give a speech and announce he's now the president of this quiet Earth. He also says that he's been condemned to live. As Zack starts to cry, The power goes out in the whole city. Sometime later Zach bursts into a church with a gun, looking for someone. He keeps yelling "Where are you?" and threatening to shoot Jesus if this person doesn't come out. Since nobody comes, he starts shooting the Jesus statue until it falls. He also uses an axe to destroy a set of computers, saying he's now God. Afterward he drives a huge truck through a gas station and accidentally runs over a pram. Zach immediately runs to check on it because he's afraid he may have killed a baby, but the pram is empty. While the gas station catches on fire, Zach grabs his gun and tries to self-delete, but he hears the building explode and decides not to do it. After a nice swim in the sea, Zach installs a generator to have power again. The next time he goes to town for supplies, he hears a strange noise nearby. He grabs his gun and hides in the store, but nothing happens. While driving down the road, he wonders if a car has been moved or if he's imagining things. At home, Zach connects a remote control to the mower to take care of his garden without lifting a finger. Then he uses his computer to check the radiation levels. Some numbers seem to be higher, so he tells the computer to keep an eye on them. Suddenly he hears the noise again and turns around to find Joanne pointing a gun at him. Zach puts a hand up and Joanne lowers the gun, explaining it isn't real. The relief of finally finding another human being causes them to hug. In the evening, they share a nice dinner and talk about what they've experienced since the event. Joanne says that she saw a dead baby in the hospital covered in maggots, but the child had been dead for less than 3 weeks. Zach mentions that the water goes down the hole the wrong way, so he has the feeling that they're either dead or in a different universe. The next morning they decide to go looking for more people. Zach has a hangover from drinking too much last night, so Joanne has to drive. In the middle of the road, they find the scene of a crash with a man dead in a car window. Medicine has fallen from an ambulance and a woman is dead at the door. She has a radio in her hand, which means she was trying to call for help. Joanne believes she was alive after the effect. Moments later Zach makes Joanne stop the vehicle so he can use a device to check on the sun. He asks Joanne if the sun is pulsating and she says no, so he throws his device away. In the evening, they decide to stay at a motel. During dinner they discuss the probability of finding more people. Joanne thinks there are others, they just are trapped or too afraid to leave. The following day they each take a different vehicle to cover more area and keep in touch using walkie-talkies. Joanne goes to the hospital but she can't see the dead baby anymore. Zach goes to the local university and connects the generator to the computer. Suddenly another strange light flashes and Zach senses something strange in the air. Joanne calls him to tell him she also felt something weird, then she goes to check the prison while Zach searches the library. Neither of them finds a single person. During dinner, Zach tells Joanne that Project Flashlight had been an American idea and other countries were only helping. The Americans had been experimenting with energy transmissions through a grid surrounding Earth, which would allow planes to fly without needing to refuel. Joanne calls it men playing to be God, but Zach thinks there's no proof their experiment caused this and thinks God could have done it. Joanne refuses to believe God would do this and has a breakdown, so Zach comforts her. The following morning, Zach is startled awake by the phone ringing. He picks it up only to hear Joanne pretending to be the receptionist. She brings him breakfast in bed and he accidentally spills the hot food on his lap. It seems they've spent the night together and now they're a couple. Afterward they race their cars through the city to have some fun before splitting to continue the search. Zach goes to the lake and reads some science books before recording his conclusions. He believes that the fabric of the universe has been altered and is now unstable. On his way back to town, Zach finds a huge truck blocking the street so he has to make a turn. However, he finds another street blocked by cars. He takes the only free street but drives for just 1 block before encountering another truck. When he tries to leave by moving in reverse, a new truck comes out of a building and blocks him again. Zach leaves his car to investigate but doesn't find anyone on the truck's seats. Suddenly API jumps out the back of the truck with his own gun and disarms Zach before patting him down. He also asks if he's seen anyone else, and Zach says no. At that moment Joanne tries to contact Zach, so API realizes he's been lied to and forces Zach to take him to his friend. At the park, API hides while Zach reunites with Joanne. When API realizes they aren't dangerous he comes out and drops his gun, so the three of them share a hug. The trio leaves together and doesn't stop driving until night falls, so they camp around a fire. API shares that before the incident, he had been fighting with a friend. While they punched each other, they fell into the river and the friend took the chance to overpower API, holding him underwater. As he fell unconscious, API's spirit left his body and watched the scene from above. When the effect happened, his friend disappeared and API could feel his spirit traveling toward the strange light. However, the weight of life sent him back to his body. Hearing this story makes Joanne remember that when the incident happened, she had been electrocuted by her hair dryer. After Zach remembers that the night before he had mixed alcohol with his medicine, he realizes he must have died too. The trio concludes that they survived the effect because they were dead when it happened. They spend the night in API's place and he plays the piano while Joanne and Zach dance. They end up all singing together. In the middle of the night, Joanne wakes up because she feels something weird and discovers that API isn't in his bed. She follows a noise outside and finds him in tears singing to a woman's grave. Sometime later, API studies the sun and notices that its oscillations are increasing. If this continues, it'll collapse in a few days. Meanwhile, Joanne and API go for a run together and Joanne asks why API fought with his friend. API explains he killed the guy's wife because it was necessary. Joanne now isn't sure if she can trust him. When Joanne comes home, Zach notices she's in a bad mood and wants to talk to her, however she wants to be alone. Zach tries to tell her about the sun, but Joanne tells him to discuss it with God, referring to API entering the room to watch all this. While Joanne walks away, Zach announces they have to leave quickly and API wonders why, thinking he's insulting his home. Zach asks him what he did to Joanne and reminds API that he's in charge. An argument ensues and API aggressively grabs Zach by his clothes when he makes a racist remark. Zach throws the recorder at his face to push him off and gets on his truck to escape. Zach rushes to his Jeep to follow him and asks Joanne if she wants to come, but she refuses to ride with him so he leaves. Then Joanne steals a car to follow them too. During the chase, API hears the notes in the recorder and learns that the sky grid created by Project Flashlight has been affecting the sun. When API finally catches up to Zach, he hits his car with the Jeep and pushes him off the road. Then API grabs Zach, but freezes when Joanne takes the gun from the Jeep to open fire. A frustrated Zach admits he knew there was something wrong with the project for a year, but he didn't say anything and now he's living with guilt. API realizes Zach mixed alcohol and medicine on purpose to self-delete, which Zach confirms. Afterward, the trio leaves together in one car and Zach explains there's nothing he can do about the sun because the Americans hid a lot of information about it. At home, Zach runs more tests and concludes that the effect will happen again. Suddenly there's a flash of light and Zach disappears. Joanne looks for him while API begins walking on the wall. At the same time, Zach is alone in an alternate version of the room without the others. He can hear Joanne calling him and looks for her outside, but he can't find her. Joanne can hear him too, yet she can't see him either. Thinking Zach is gone for good, Joanne and API comfort each other with a hug. However, Zach comes back inside and easily reunites with them. He says this was just a tremor and next time they'll get the real effect. API thinks they must bring the grid down to solve this, so he takes his friends to a military warehouse and blows up the door to enter. They find many trucks and a huge amount of explosives, which they can use to destroy the grid. While loading the explosives on a truck, Zach concludes that API and Joanne aren't real and he's been hallucinating. Then API drives the truck with explosives while Zach and Joanne get in a car. Zach wonders if Joanne likes API more, so Joanne tells him about API's crime. She looks away from the road to kiss him and almost crashes into a truck, but Zach manages to move the vehicle just in time. When API arrives, he stops his truck because there isn't room to pass and announces he'll push the other truck out of the way. Joanne and Zach hide behind their car while API gently pushes the other truck a few times to no avail. API then moves back a mile and starts driving at full speed, causing both trucks to scratch each other. Luckily there's no crash and the vehicle with the explosive safely reaches the other side. Joanne decides to travel with API so Zach has to follow them alone in the car. Minutes later Zach hears his device beeping and tries to call the others, but API turns off the walkie-talkie. A furious Zach drives faster to reach the side of the truck and yell at them. However, both vehicles have to stop when they find a one-lane bridge. While API and Joanne secretly hold hands, Zach explains that they can't go any closer to the lab because the radiation levels are too high. The trio watches the lab from afar and Zach gets an idea. They could use his remote control to guide the truck without anybody inside. Zach will have to go to town to retrieve it and Joanne offers to go with him, but he turns her down. After he's gone, API and Joanne get naughty. When they're done, API admits he doesn't think the control will work and he'll have to drive the truck. Minutes later the new couple hears the truck moving, but it's too soon for Zach to be back from town. They look out and discover that Zach never left. He's now driving the truck with the explosives connected to his heart. Zach pushes the truck through the area he weakened during his first escape and lands near his coworker's body. Then he detonates the bombs, blowing up the whole lab with one huge explosion. After several minutes of seeing the mysterious light, Zach wakes up on a beach. On the horizon, a massive ring planet rises above strange-looking clouds. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.